So works. Technology. How's it going? How's your meal compliance? Okay. Are you still vomiting, having those types of symptoms? So then this kind of left you a little bit just shaken a bit. It's probably stirring up issues and memories of other interactions with similar circumstances where people have done the same type of loyalty testing, whether consciously or unconsciously. I think why it's a little weird right now is because you're in a place where you're starting to get reintegrated and you're starting to see the chaos and you're starting to see that other people are whirlwinding in their own chaos, right? And so what you just saw, it's like, why is this so weird? And why am I left asking all these questions? And why do I feel so, I don't know, right? About it is because, yeah, you just had a narcissistic attack. That's what they look like, right? It's a very deliberate, you're either with me or you're against me. So I'm going to test you to see where you're at. Do you believe me even when I make up some of the most profoundly craziest, gnarliest? Is that something that will drive you away? Or will you stay along with whatever experience they've developed? Their sense of love abandons them. So they're not, the way that they test to see if you're somebody that's solid is to play these games to see if you'll leave. They don't trust their brain and they don't trust you. And their brain doesn't trust your safety because you're reflecting back to them something that they've probably never seen before, which is someone that listens to them, someone that hears them out, someone that holds space and doesn't call them names whenever they say something the wrong way or start just having symptoms. And because of that, they don't know how to process that in real time. They don't know how to metabolize it. So they metabolize it as, oh, this person's setting me up. They're trying to have me break up with them. So I'll just go ahead and break up with them first by doing some crazy stuff. All because they have that image in their head that this person thought that is going to abandon me somehow. Right. Yeah. But then it will, because what they'll end up happening, and what you probably know from relationships, is people will break up with you all the time and still come around and try to get closure, even though they're the ones that break up with you. But that is all borderline personality. It's like these constant tests. Are you with me? Are you not with me? Can I trust you? I can't trust you. Let me see if I can trust you. And as you start to break that pattern down, you're going to start to see that's pretty much every single relationship you have. Is it your job to say something? That's the thing. We only pick the battles that we're supposed to fight. Usually therapists are trying to, this is what they get paid for, to try to get people to see that. You're probably not going to show them that. They're too young. They don't have the mechanisms within them to understand what's exactly happening. And this is all part of them working through whatever they have right now that is keeping them in their place, so they can get to that next place, right? Ultimately, they have to go through their journey and get to it. You get pointed out the reality they're not going to really understand. And if they're kids, they're entitled to do it, right? The thing that I want to come back to is we can't change them directly, but we can start to model boundaries in a way that not only protects us from feeling all these feelings, but also starts to unconsciously train them. Because I don't know anything about this person, but I can imagine troubled family at home, epilepsy, mom's probably got her issues. So he's not in the picture either. There's no real sort of boundaries being modeled to this person regardless. So when you say, what can I do? You need to, in many ways, take on the self-parenting role so that you mirror that parenting back to them. I know that's a big word, parenting, but ultimately what you're trying to do is have a very direct conversation. Because that's ultimately what people with these mental positionings, you can't really have metaphors. You have to be very direct. Maybe just ask that question. I felt really bad that you lied to me. I was wondering what that's about. I thought that we were friends, but I want to understand, is there something that you feel going on between us? Because I don't understand that you're telling me something and then I'm finding out it's not true, right? Holding people to account for their behavior, even if they're children, even if they're troubled, oftentimes begins that process, creating in their mind the idea that, hey, what I did wasn't a good look, so maybe I should be a little bit more self-aware. It's difficult, right? Because you don't want to put people on blast. You don't want to make things weird. It sounds like you've already had the discussion and nothing really came of it. That's to be expected because you try to rationalize with someone who is still a child, in many ways processing the original problems that they've developed with whatever traumatic experience they have. And I'm just using that word trauma. If we go back, part of what I've been talking about all week is psychoanalytic theorist Peter Fanad. He talks a lot about how these behaviors, these borderline positions, in many ways, they are the things that we're on our journey, we're on our straight line, and then we suffer our trauma. And it's like we're walking and there's a tennis court, and we look over and inside it's two versions of you playing a tennis game. One side's on depression and the other side's on narcissism. This is what trauma creates, right? This constant loop where you're triggered by shame. So you do things from the depression side, and you've heard me talk about this, borderline personality. Then you hit it into your narcissism side and do stuff so your ego doesn't feel the shame, right? And you're stuck in this cycle all the while off that path you are on. So the original point then is we need to understand that this person's still way back there, right? On the path, playing their tennis game that they don't even know they're playing, but they're still down there and they haven't really gained any of the insights to join us where we're at. So the only real way that you can show them that you're a safe space is to actually show them that you're a safe space and just be safe, right? Because that's their experience. Their perception is what lives 6 inches in front of their face. And they're not going to put a lot of stock into what you're saying to them because it's like Charlie Brown's teacher, right? Well, that's how kids are. I know this. I have two myself. You can't really rationalize. All you can continue to do is to model safe behavior and reframe, right, to safety. So a good way to do that is I catch them when they're talking. And if they're talking and they're being overly negative, try to change them into the positive. Try to redirect to the positive. They associate you with positivity and positive thoughts. They don't associate you with the continued negativity that their brain is spiraling into. Another thing that, and again, I'm not here to give you advice on what to do, but one of the things that is very effective oftentimes is just to be the calm presence in the room, to understand that people, and this is like behind the glass type of stuff, but when you were at residential, you saw how people would break down and how people would either overreact and that would create all kinds of tension, or people would just maintain stability, be like that grounded force, and slowly the house would come back down to normal, right? And that's because when all of this emotion, it's like Ghostbusters, right? The emotions open up and they all fly out. But when there's a steady presence there, those emotions will attract themselves to that because it's a stable force, and then they'll settle back down. So as much as you can, be that stabilizing force, which then is great because then it gives you incentive to, hey, we're in a program, right? We're doing our meal plan. We're working our anxiety. You're looking a lot better these days, right? Let's maintain this momentum so that then we can continue being this steady force for our clients. So you haven't been sick in a couple of weeks. Have you had a chance to have any more conversation with your dad? What does it mean that he's getting a little better with that? At the very least, that thing you noticed, the text. What do you think would have blocked you back then? Right. You were afraid of opening up the door again. Okay. So you're still afraid. I use that word afraid, but okay. I won't use the word afraid, but you're still hesitant to have relationship, probably projecting to you that she's not ready yet either. Okay. So if you have a relationship with your dad and your brother, that's fine. She just doesn't want to have one with you, and that would be cool with her. How does that make you upset? What kind of upset? Okay. It makes it hard. What thing that's hard? How does that make you feel when you have to work that hard to have a relationship with your brother? How does it make you feel when they take it away? Right. It's seriously impacting the balance, the very delicate balance that has to maintain for her to have equilibrium. I would imagine it's hard not to take it personally, like they're trying to deliberately. It would be nice to be included. And the fact that she doesn't upsets you. And it's extremely more upsetting the fact that your dad sees all this and he doesn't do anything about it. It's not so much that his love is conditional, it's that he knows where his bread is buttered. And happy wife is a happy life. He's just trying to do what a lot of other men do, which is, hey, we know the score. And we're not trying to do anything here that's going to get us off the team. We're going to, even if it means not necessarily do my role as a dad and be this role model. What you're describing is you don't want to go over to the house because, yeah, you sets you off and physically is difficult for you to even be in a place with her because it's at this point, you can tell it's viscerally react. There is this very in your face, I don't like you vibe that you get. Right. And so from that relationship, when you decided to say that I've had enough, is there anything there that you can think that might apply to this situation? And so what does that tell you? But I think you're onto something with that first part. Because if you were to tell your parents that, hey, I did unblock them, and don't really go into the explanation of why, and don't go into the explanation of perhaps how he's changed, maybe that can begin the process of having them be curious about it. Why'd you unblock him? And then that would be your entryway. Because he's shown me that we had this history, but he has shown that he's gone to get help and he's processed a lot of his issues and he's actually in a better place, right? Therapy has been really good for him. And he's shown good capacity for change. And I appreciate that. He's showing that he's changed. In many ways, illustrating how this model for what you're saying, appropriate behavior, he treated me poorly and then we had a fight. And he said, I want to be your friend again. You said, cool, go get therapy. He said, cool, I will. And then he did it. That model worked because you're seeing how it changed. Okay, we're not here to prescribe things for people because people have to come to their own conclusions. I've really been impressed with how it has changed because he has really shown that he has not only atoned for the things that he's done in the past, but he's really had a place to think about his behavior and how it affects a lot of things. And maybe just that I find that admirable, that someone is willing to explore themselves, see the ugly parts, and consciously decide to change. I think it depends on what you feel comfortable with and how you're ready to engage in that way. If you feel that he's capable of having that conversation, this one's got some logistical issues to it. Where would you feel comfortable having that conversation? Could you bring in middle person? Okay, then you're answering your question. Because I think where we start is by maybe having that conversation and saying, hey, everything you just said, I friended him on Facebook again. We're following each other. We're catching up. These have been my experiences. I'd like to have a conversation with him about what we did, what happened. I'd like to have that here where I feel safe. There's a lot going on, but I think you have to start somewhere. I think that's where I would start. Because once I get past the fact that you're trying to, that little bit that lives there where it's like my mom doesn't know and all that, I think once you get out of that, then it becomes a lot easier to plan this discussion without it becoming this like weird covert type of, hey, we're going to go to a park and talk type of thing, right? You want to present it as, I've been going to therapy, I've been doing my thing, I want to see if there's a chance to catch up because I think we have a lot of things to talk about generally. And then within that, be as direct as possible. Speak to how it made you feel. That would be the best place to start. You're not speaking from an accusatory point of view. You're speaking from a, hey, I felt this when this happened. It's up for interpretation. Ultimately, that over-explanation is not going to change the fact that I didn't feel loved, appreciated, respected, whatever. You don't have to say it any specific way. Just say it. We had this argument, and the way that I came out of that was not very good. I think I would start there. Because I wouldn't start with, hey, you're a bad person. I'd probably just go, it's great that we're doing well. And I think now it's time to start talking a little bit about how there are some things in the past that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And we're free to have that conversation, whether you feel like it's appropriate or not to behave in a certain way. But old mothers, daughters, sons, dads, whatever, ultimately happened. I felt this way. And I just want to tell you that and let you know that this is where I'm at. Is there a way to perhaps come back from that? That's what the discussion should be, right? How do we find ways to fix what we couldn't in the past so that we can start talking to each other moving forward? Because again, stepfathers, divorces, they're still your family. They came into your life